Hey, folks, this clip is brought to you by Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey from Lockstill Distillery. Make your own luck, just like Tennessee football's fast paced Rattle and Snap offense with Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey.
All right, I'll throw it to you here, Zach. Kirby Smart. I can't believe this guy. This has won back-to-back national titles. Makes me want to gouge my eyes out. But what was he saying this week that kind of relates to Tennessee?
Yeah, so after his scrimmage, Georgia also had a scrimmage on Saturday. He spoke to reporters just like Josh Heupel did, and he was asked about evaluating quarterbacks, and just out of nowhere he says, "It's in our quarter. It's like a true quarterback is a decision maker in our system because some systems take all the pressure off of the quarterback and they just go really fast." We don't do that. We're a quarterback driven offense, so you can process the information. That means you get the signal, get people lined up, see what the defense is in, and then figure out if we're in the right situation. And he talked about, kind of getting multiple plays from the offensive coordinator, and which still, first off, he doesn't directly throw shade at Tennessee, but I think we know that he's talking about an offense that Tennessee is the best at running in the entire country. Whether Tennessee's the best at offense, period, in the entire country. It doesn't really matter what the system is. They score more points than anybody. But obviously, that's a reference to Tennessee and how fast they go, and other programs are starting to try to emulate that. And we all know the narrative out there that these aren't pro-style systems that don't really prepare quarterbacks. And honestly, I'm not sure, how to feel about that necessarily, because there aren't a ton of examples of those quarterbacks going to the NFL and failing or succeeding, because there just aren't a ton of those offenses, and not as much as other offenses. But even in Kirby's comments, he's still talking about reading the defense pre-snap, and that is at the crux of what Tennessee does. I mean, they read defenses pre-snap way quicker than anybody else, and I don't understand how, looking at that defense, and it's more than just counting numbers in the box. I know that's what people like to say. It's okay, there's 7 guys in the box. We're going to, run the ball because there's some space there. And they just kind of simplify it to that extent. And it's obviously much more than that. Tennessee obviously does much more offensively than that. We've seen them go under center. We've seen them use clock and not go hurry up. We've seen them huddle even at times. There were times last year when they huddled. There's a lot of different things they can do thanks to Josh Heupel's knowledge of the game. If Josh Heupel wanted to go run a pro-style offense, he could. He's more than knowledgeable enough to go out there and operate that and to make those play calls and to install a system like that. But he's found a better way to do it. And I don't see how that's a negative. And I think this is Kirby throwing this out here more for recruits to hear than anything else. Because who cares what Kirby thinks about Tennessee's offense? It doesn't really have an impact on who wins or loses that game. But it could have an impact on how recruits view Tennessee. And I don't think it's necessarily for Kirby to still a quarterback recruit from Tennessee. I think there's plenty to go around. I think it's more to keep them from going to Tennessee, because I think Kirby knows if Tennessee doesn't have a Hendon Hooker, a Joe Milton, a Nico Yamalava, if they don't have a really talented quarterback, it's not going to work. It's not just plug in a quarterback and you're going to score 50 points a game. That's not how it works. And I think Kirby knows that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the worst things that could happen as it relates to this situation, one of the worst things that could happen for Kirby and the rest of the SEC that has to play Tennessee is that Hendon Hooker gets drafted high here and succeeds in the NFL. I mean, that would be obviously incredible for Tennessee and really bad for them, because you can't negatively recruit against that. I mean, that it's exactly what you were saying here. It's him throwing this out to try to make the point, like it's it feels so similar to the early days with Saban, where they're just playing that old style of football. And I please don't let it go back to that. And I don't think it's going to, but where they're just like, oh, well, we're doing football the right way, where we have quarterbacks that run a pro style offense, and that's men's football. We're playing or whatever. And it would genuinely be bad for that narrative if Hooker could get drafted high, go to the NFL and succeed, and Josh Heupel would be able to have an example to point at and go, looky there. This is what this system can do for you. You can go to the NFL. You can be that guy. And all you have to do is just work really hard in the system that we have here. And So, I mean, yeah, obviously Kirby's talking about Tennessee there. That's I just hate when it comes from him at this point. I mean, what are you supposed to say? Obviously, his stuff works. Now, granted, I think any system would work when you plug in 95-star guys on a roster, but just beyond that, it's frustrating. You also can't say that much because they've won back-to-back national championships. But I would say, as far as Tennessee goes, when other coaches go out and say things like this, just keep putting the results out there, sending quarterbacks to the NFL, if you can, sending wide receivers to the NFL, winning game, having 11 win seasons, doing those things, and ultimately this match. It does piss me off a lot that it comes from Kirby because, yeah, at the end of the day, it's not like you can be like with Saban. If Saban said something like this, you can go like, well, hey, listen here, buddy, we beat you this year. Go cry about it.
Few things go better with a Tennessee sports victory than an awesome whiskey. And actually, me and Jonathan Crompton had a drink of whiskey during the postgame show of every football win this past season. And more specifically, we had Rattle and Snap Tennessee Select Straight Whiskey. You can see it right there behind me. Dawg Distillery has released a new Tennessee whiskey product line called Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey, named after a long-forgotten game of chance. Rattle and Snap is a whiskey for those who make their own luck. There's a 4-year and an 8-year version of Rattle and Snap whiskey. And actually, this one behind me is the 4-year version right here. It's perfect for making your favorite whiskey cocktails or just drinking neat. It's really great stuff. And I mean, you can see it there. The bottle looks great too. You can find Rattle and Snap right now in stores across Tennessee. And Rattle and Snap is also available in Kentucky, Indiana, and Mississippi. So run, don't walk to get yourself some Rattle and Snap whiskey. And follow Rattle and Snap on Instagram at Rattle and Snap Whiskey. That is Rattle and Snap Tennessee Select Straight Whiskey.
We did that a few weeks ago because Saban was popping his mouth off about this stuff. But you can't do that here with Georgia. You got to go beat Georgia. So I would say the ultimate way to take care of this situation is to go beat Georgia this coming season. But of course, that is a very, very tall task, I think.
Do you think we put too much importance on how the system prepares a quarterback for the NFL? I mean, or any player for the NFL? I mean, obviously you want that if you're. I mean, most of the players on your roster aren't going to the NFL. I mean, yes, you want to develop players. Obviously, that's a goal. But Josh Heupel is not there to create first-round picks. I mean, we've seen first-round picks come from teams that were 8-4 on an annual basis. He's there to win a national championship. He's there to win 10, 11, 12 games a year. I mean, those are his objectives, and he has to do that whatever means necessary, that's legal within the rules, whatever. That's his objective, and that's what he's doing. So if you're Kirby Smart, why are you worried about what type of offense it is? If you're Nick Saban, if you're any of these other coaches that throw in shade, I mean, look at Dabo Swinney. Tennessee beat him with that offense, and he goes out and hires an offensive coordinator and plans on running a similar offense to Tennessee, a hurry-up offense where they're reading, doing the same stuff. And this is a coach that's won multiple national championships at Clemson, and he recognized that, hey, this might be a better way to do things. And obviously Kirby's way works too, but you got to have, you got to have Jalen Carters and Broderick Jones and these just massive human beings to win in the trenches to do that. And Kirby's got those guys, but I don't really understand the shade.
I would put it this way. I wish that was not a factor in college football. The only reason that sending guys to the NFL and having them be NFL ready is a thing is because of recruiting. I mean, you have to get the guys in the door, and those guys want to go play pro ball. And do you prepare them for that? I wish that wasn't the case, because what is run and what wins in college football is not what wins in the NFL. It's two totally different things. Obviously, you can win 11 games in college football with the crazy offense that Josh Heupel runs. That would not fly in the NFL. And so I want to go just do what wins in college football. And Heupel is obviously doing that with this offense. But to do that, you still have to send kids to the NFL, and you have to prove that you can do that.
Well, now you do it. It wasn't always that way. I mean,
yeah,
Florida, under Steve Spurrier ran a different offense, and Danny Werfel was successful. He wasn't much of an NFL guy. Rex Grossman, he started in a Super Bowl, but for the most part, he wasn't this big NFL guy. I mean, the past 20 years was littered with guys like that. Jason White at Oklahoma, even Tim Tebow at Florida. He wasn't a star NFL player like Matt Leinart at USC. I mean, there were all kinds of these. Even Casey Clausen at Tennessee or T. Martin won a national championship. They usually didn't go on to have these crazy NFL careers because their coaches just ran these systems that worked, and they kept getting players, and that the focus was winning the championship. It wasn't always on the next level, and maybe that's just players now where the mindset has shifted. But it's still at the end of to me, it should be about winning games.
Yeah, they do go hand in hand, but I want more emphasis on the winning games at the college level, I guess, for me. And as far as this situation goes, again, the best way to shut Kirby up is to beat him. So please, somebody, please beat this guy, even if it's not Tennessee. All right. Well, I think.
Well, you know what though, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you realize that? And this is something that kind of came up this week. Tennessee's the biggest game on Georgia's schedule this year, and if Tennessee beats Florida and Alabama, their other two big games, which are on the road, or really even if they beat Florida and they lose to Alabama and they go beat Georgia in Knoxville in late November, I don't think the rest of Georgia's schedule, even though they're defending national champs, the rest of their schedule, I mean, like Florida would be their toughest game. There's a scenario where like a one-loss Tennessee could get in over a one-loss Georgia because they would have, a win over Georgia and a win over Florida or maybe Alabama.
You'd have to make sure that you're the one going to the SEC championship in that scenario. That's the only thing that makes me squirrely about it. But I mean, if you did that, I do think a one-loss Georgia that doesn't play in the SEC championship game probably misses the playoff next year.
Because their hardest non-conference game is Georgia Tech. I mean, they're playing. Oddly, they're playing a couple of non-conference teams that Tennessee played last year, but they don't have that extra, Power 5 game where, Tennessee went to Pittsburgh and played, and Georgia gets the cupcake in Georgia Tech, and they're playing Ball State and UT Martin as well.
It's a total joke.
And they don't play Alabama,
of course, and they don't have to play themselves like Tennessee has to play them. God, makes me old to talk about them. So let's just not anymore. Let's just go. Let's beat them next year, please.